I'd like to call this June 29th, 2023 Board of Education regular meeting to order. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Cobain?
Here.
Mr. Micko?
Here.
Ms. Stochek?
Here.
And Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
All present.
We could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda are our district goals. They remain the same: financial prudence, academic achievement and growth, and community engagement. An example of academic growth is our district has continued to provide learning opportunities for students this summer. Over 200 students are participating in elementary summer learning, which includes reading and math for classes for K through 5 students, as well as an enrichment course, counseling support, and English learner support. Summer learning at the secondary level also has over 200 students participating in middle school math and reading remediation courses, state test prep courses, and state test administration, credit recovery and credit advancement, English language learner sessions, and makerspace camps. Thank you to our staff and families who are actively participating in this summer's learning opportunities. Next up, I will turn it over to Dr. Ryba for recognitions.
Thank you, Mrs. Hausum. We have a number of recognitions tonight. We're going to start off with the Extra Mile Award, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Stochek and Ms. Cobain.
This month, we are acknowledging a student, Andrew Dormany, if he could come up here, as well as Mr. Wingler. Andrew is a junior at Strongsville High School, and he's in our aeronautics program, and he's been awarded a $10,000 scholarship from the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. And he was one of only 80 scholarship recipients in the entire country. So we're going to have Mr. Wingler speak about that.
So that covers most of it, but I do want to add, this is a part of, at Polaris, there's an aeronautics program. And what's really cool, and I actually just found this out recently, Andrew, this is a scholarship that, when you think scholarship, you think traditionally it's a scholarship to college. But what this is, Andrew can use these funds, which he's currently using, to pay for his flight time. Andrew should, if I'm correct, you should have your flight license before you graduate from high school. Your goal is by December, correct? So although Andrew is seeking to pursue this in college, potentially at Kent State, I think maybe Eastern Michigan you mentioned, this is something that in real time he will have this license before he actually graduates from Strongsville High School. And if you've been watching the news and you watch travel, we certainly can use more pilots. So I'm going to actually let Andrew say a few words if he wants to about the program, or anyone else.
So first of all, of course, I want to thank Mr. Wingler for giving me this award. It's a great honor, and I'm very proud of it. But second of all, I really do want to stress the importance of thanking my Polaris instructor, Mr. Monar. He teaches my aeronautics class, and he gave me this opportunity, and without him, this would never have been possible. So he is the reason behind this. So I just want to say thank you for him.
If your parents are here or somebody, come on up, they'll take a picture.
Yeah, go take it.
Come on up. Come on up.
Just two first.
Okay.
I'm in the middle since I got your guys' tall genetics.
Sure, why not?
This is one of the great parts about this program, is that we get to discover things like this that we otherwise would not even know existed in our schools, and opportunities that we have in our schools. To think that he will have his license to do this by the time he graduates from high school is absolutely amazing. So our program in our city. And Mr. Wingler, thank you for bringing attention to that.
Once again, congratulations, and we're going to continue on with the recognitions. And I'm going to turn it over to Maggie Koza, who's representing the Strongsville Council PTA, to recognize a variety of staff as well as PTA members for this past year. Maggie?
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, members of the school board, Dr. Ryba and Mrs. Pelko. My name is Maggie Koza, and I will be serving my second year for council as your coordinating secretary and hospitality chair. Christmas is less than 6 months away, you guys. But get excited because we're going to have a really fun coffee bar. Because Mrs. Boynton says I have a really good coffee bar, so now I have to live up to that. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you on behalf of the Council PTA and the 9 units that serve the children, parents, and schools of Strongsville. So the first thing that we had this year was we had our T in PTA award, and this year it was given to Mike Griffin from Muraski, who I think is here. And a couple of things that were said about him is that he has a positive and infectious energy. He is active and supportive of the PTA and any ideas we bring to him. He attends our meetings, promotes our events, and attends them well. He was our star attraction at our spring carnival last year, as he braved the icy water in the dunk tank. No task is too small for Mr. Griffin. He directed traffic during the breakfast with a buddy, and he joined PTA to serve up meals to families at Culver's. He helped us add some new events. He attended our first PTA tailgate prior to Muraski night and the football game, after spending the day being dunked in a dunk tank at our first field day. He expanded the PTA Reflections program by approving an after-school club only at Muraski. Mr. Griffin also promoted PTA Family Running Club. Mr. Griffin teaches you you may not be able to control a situation, but you can control how you react. So congratulations to Mr. Griffin. I have a certificate for you.
Mike?
Mike.
Mike?
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Congratulations. Much better.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Wingler. Is Keith here? I don't know what he looks like. I don't know what he looks like, so I want to make sure he's great. Okay, so the next that we had was the Helping Hands nomination. And the Helping Hands award this year went to Keith Simic, who is the head of the Strongsville Maintenance Department. Since you're here, Mr. Wingler, I have what you said. Do you want me to read it, or would you like to read it? How would you come up and read it? I just feel weird saying somebody else's.
All right. See if I can remember what I said. Well, I'm gonna talk from the hip anyway, because when they asked me to nominate somebody that makes a difference at the high school, and I know in all the schools, but for me specifically at the high school, my mind went directly to Keith. And in the last, so this will be, I finished my 3rd year at the high school. In the last, which isn't a long time, in 3 years, in a very short time period, there have been multiple times where the high school might not have been open if it wasn't for Keith. I remember an event, we had an 808, we had a shaved ice truck for freshman orientation, and I was standing out in the field, and some stuff started bubbling up in the ground where we had had the flood the year before, and I texted Keith, and I said, please help. And he came flying down the road in like 3 minutes, and honestly averted a day off of school for the first day of school, which would have been really, really bad. The year before, we had that flood, and I remember going home and telling my wife, we are not having school tomorrow. No one can clean up that mess in 24 hours. It cannot be done. We had school. It was done. His team did it. After that flood, if those of you have been back in the Mile unit, the Mile is our self-contained special education unit. They have a coffee bar. Mike's wife is a superstar back there as well. It was rebuilt, so the flood destroyed their room. What Keith's team did was they completely rebuilt the room to include, it has washer and dryer, it has everything. And honestly, I joke, if I could get the Browns games there, it's probably a lot quieter than my house. I might sneak up there. It has everything you can imagine. That's just like 3 or 4 stories. I could do like 20. There are so many things Keith has done to impact the student experience at Strongsville High School, and I know that he has at everyone else's school as well, that, you know, teachers are super important, and I get that, and they get all the good press usually, but they couldn't do their jobs if Keith didn't do the amazing things that he does at the high school. So I believe he won the PTA award, and I believe he also won, didn't he win something like regionally or? Yeah, sorry, I jumped in front of you. But I can't articulate enough that when you come to the high school and everything's working great and you go to Maraski or any of the school, there's a good chance Keith had a hand in making it look the way that it looks. And the fact that things operate, he is one of the most reliable people I've ever worked with, so it's really an honor for me to be able to honor him. So come up, you don't get to sit there the whole time.
Okay, and then, yes, Mr. Griffin and Keith won out of the whole state. They won #1 for our awards, which was like an even bigger surprise, and it was a nice surprise that Kelly was able to share with us at our last luncheon. So congratulations again. Okay, so to continue on, during this past year, PTAs in Strongsville have provided many enrichment activities for our children. We have been back in full capacity at all schools and in our units, and they did an amazing job. We are very proud of all our units for working hard to bring their schools new ways of doing things and evolving with the world around us. Some projects and activities included book fairs, carnivals, preschool prom, family fun nights, student group enrichment grants, holiday shops, family math and science nights, after prom, senior banners, multiple successful fun runs, and many teacher appreciation events. SMS Gives Back, plus so many more activities and fundraisers. We have worked with staff, members, and community leaders through the DARE program, Strongsville Food Bank, Guidestone Adopt a Family Holiday Program, and the Strongsville Education Foundation. Collectively, between council and the 9 units, we have raised over $70,000 in funds that go towards our schools. We have approved over $20,000 in teacher and staff grants that include classroom and building materials and resources. In May, Strongsville PTAs gave out scholarships totaling $11,000 to our graduating seniors. At the council level, we have continued to host our Rocking at the Rec and SMS dances for our middle school and raised $15,500 for grants and scholarships. In February, we celebrated our annual Founders Day ceremony by recognizing 10 individuals that go above and beyond for the betterment of our students and school district. This year, we are happy to present to the board a total of 15,430 hours of volunteer service given by our PTAs for the benefit of our children, staff, and schools of Strongsville. We are proud to say that this year's involvement level in our schools has been amazing, and we will continue to serve the school community. Thank you to the board and our school administrators for giving us the opportunity to work with you to make positive contributions to our children's education experiences.
Once again, congratulations to Mike and Keith on a well-deserved recognition, and Maggie, on behalf of the district and the board, thanks to you and all of the PTA volunteers that volunteered so much of their time and talents to make our district a better place. We appreciate it. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Student Services, Mr. Andy Trujillo, for some additional recognitions of staff and students that were honored throughout the past school year.
Good evening, members of the board. I have the pleasure this evening of recognizing the 2023 Outstanding Educator Achievement Award to Emma Northheim, who's a kindergarten teacher at Moraski. If Emma could come up, please. So every year, the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio has what they call the Outstanding Educator Award. They also have one for students that's coming up after this one. But the purpose of these awards throughout our region is to recognize educators and students who go above and beyond to support students with disabilities. I've known Miss Northheim, come up here, for a very long time, since as a principal, and Emma was starting out as a beginning teacher, and she's always done a phenomenal job. I'd like to read to you a little bit of what her colleague wrote in the nomination. I won't read the entire 2 pages here because there's so many great things to say, but it says that Emma Northheim works tirelessly to support all students and make her classroom the safe, positive, engaging space every child needs. She exudes inclusion, welcoming all students into her classroom. She's a team leader, but also an awesome team player. I know that Emma had a cohort of preschoolers from our district into her kindergarten classroom this year, and they were kids that throughout the year I was monitoring. And I heard how she was supporting these kids, and I was so taken back and just motivated by what I heard she was doing. I got in my car, I drove to Moraski. She doesn't know that's why I came. I didn't want it to make it too awkward, but I just had to check in and say, how's it going? What do you need as far as support? And just say thanks. Because what she was doing was truly above and beyond, and what we want to see every educator do for all of our kids. She supports every kid no matter what. I can't say enough. Thank you, Emma. So next we have 2 awards from the same Educational Service Center award, and that is Outstanding Achievement Award to students, both coming from our middle school. So I'm going to ask Chloe and Maddie to come on up. So I'll read to you from what their teacher said about them and how they were recognized for this award. So Chloe Ahmad is an 8th grade student who comes to peer reading on Fridays and does reading and makerspace activities with students with special needs. She's always inclusive and makes sure everyone is included in some way in the activities we are doing. She has a genuine smile on her face and will work with any student who needs assistance. She's encouraging and has fun working with the kids. I've heard great things about Chloe and her continued support for all kids at the middle school, and for that I'd like to say thank you, Chloe. Our next student is Maddie Petrus. As an 8th grade student, she's a large part of the Strongsville community. She loves participating in any activity and is kind and welcoming to all students. We have a few students who speak Ukrainian in the school, and Maddie uses Google Translate to communicate with these students. She also makes sure her classmates are included in whatever is going on, is always encouraging her peers in whatever they're trying to do. Maddie is also a proud member of the cheerleading squad at Strongsville, and I'll tell you that I've known Maddie since kindergarten as a principal at Chapman, and I can tell you firsthand that she's an exceptional student and a great role model. Great job, Maddie.
Thank you, and congratulations again, Emma, Chloe, and Maddie, for your phenomenal work. And moving on to our last recognition, I'm going to bring up Chris Koval. I lost him for a second. I thought you left. With Mr. Wingler, hit him back there. I couldn't see. To talk about the outstanding track athletes and successes we've had this past season. Chris?
Well, thank you. I'm going to have the track athletes come up, too. Come on up. Yeah, if I'm up here, you're standing up here. Sure. I was going to say saving the best for last, but those are some really cool acknowledgments. Andrew, I have a deal with Case McIntyre that I get one free flight. So, where are you? Is he still here? Andrew, where are you at? I don't see you. Oh, he snuck out. Well, Case is giving me one free flight, so Andrew gets me one free flight. Again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of some really good, exceptional Strongsville student athletes. I'm really actually here to recognize 2 seasons, both the indoor season and the outdoor season. And this has kind of become a yearly tradition here in June that I get to come up and speak, which is a huge testament to the work that they put in. And, we started all the way back in November with practices indoors, and actually I think we had better weather in November and December than we did in March and April, and we were outside a little bit more back then. But we compete in a 4-division conference at Spire Institute, and there's anywhere from 8 to 10 teams in each conference, and we compete, and the idea is to just compete, but of that, the top 24 times in each event across the state of Ohio gets qualified into the state championship. And this year we had 5 girls qualify for the indoor state championship and 2 boys. On the boys' side, we had Aiden Noderkirk and Mason Birch, both qualified in the high jump. Both guys cleared 6 foot, and I could say they probably aren't happy with that, and they know that they could do better than that. Aiden ended up finishing 16th, and Mason ended up in 14th. But I know both guys put a lot of work in. Mason is a senior and has graduated, and I always say it takes 1 year at the state meet in order to understand what that is all about, in order to really truly be able to compete. So Aiden, the bar's been set literally. You had your one freebie. All right, so now the bar goes up, and you're going to have to do a little bit better next year. And I know he's already hounded me for time over the summer to work on some high jump stuff, so we'll probably be doing that as things go here. I got this for you, Aiden. On the girls' side, we had 5 girls qualify. I'm going to talk about them all. I know not all of them are here because between all the different summer schedules and work and all that stuff going on, some of them just weren't able to make it. But Tina Veras finished 18th in the 800 with a time of 2:23.48. Bryn Severance finished 14th in the mile with a time of 5:17.82. And then our girls 4x8 relay of Tina and Bryn. And then also 2 freshmen, Jenny and Hannah Jika. Hannah is here today. They finished 10th with a time of 9:46.98. And that's an incredible time indoors. And it's only going to get better because they're all coming back next year. Our next person, you're up now. You'll get more here in a minute. Our next person was Julia Isham. Julia qualified in the 2-mile, the 3,200 meter, and was our top finisher, standing in 3rd on the podium with a time of 10:38.34, which is also an incredible time. Then we moved to the outdoor season, and the outdoor season followed suit almost exactly the same way the indoor season went, with a few subtractions. Mason ended up making it to the state meet. He was our lone boy as a state qualifier in the high jump, where he finished 11th, clearing 6.4. He wasn't happy with that, but the best part of it was that until the state championship, he was undefeated in high jump. He won every single meet that he was a part of, got first place, and his season best performance was a 6'7" jump at the district meet. And if you're familiar with high jump, that's a pretty big jump. So congratulations to Mason. And then on the girls' side, we had our 4x8 relay team. Again, the same crew. Jenny, who was a freshman, Hannah, a freshman, Tina was a junior, and Bryn, also a junior. Finished just short of the podium. They finished in 9th place with a time of 9:28.79. And that's really, really close to a school record. And I think next year that's something that they should have in their sights and they should be able to accomplish. Hannah is a freshman, as I said, and she's one of our team's top 400-meter runners. Yes, I mean that, top 400 meters. She doesn't like hearing that. And top 800-meter runners. She was our 5th leading scorer this year for the season, scoring 45 points. And she ran a season best 2:17 in the 800 at the GCC Championship, where she ended up finishing 4th. And I did mention she is a freshman, so I am sure that next year I will be standing here again speaking about her and the accomplishments that she has made. So congratulations to Hannah. All right, and in this speech, this is, I am going to say that this is the best for last because she is a senior and I've spoken about her many times. And I first met her not as a coach, but as a teacher. She was in my weight training class, and I knew right away that she was an animal because she worked very hard as a freshman, and I knew that, you know, as a teacher and as a coach, I'm going off script now because I could talk all day about her, so I'm going to talk a little bit. You meet kids sometimes, and you know that they're probably going to give you more than you're ever going to give them, and she is that student athlete for me. I've learned a lot, and she has brought a lot to our program. If you're not familiar, she does this person before sport thing. It's her platform where she talks about athlete mental health, and it's always out there. She's always posting something. I think she even posted something today about air quality and it affecting. See, I know that. I follow it. She's just always advocating for athletes, and I've learned a lot from her. She does podcasts. I was on a podcast with her, and afterwards I walked away going, that was an incredible conversation. I have to rethink the way I do some things just to be better for our athletes. And I got that from her. So that said, Julia stood again in 3rd place on the podium with an All-American, or All-Ohio performance of 10:25.52. And I want to put that in some perspective and say that all 3 finishers, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in that race ran top 10 All-Ohio times, which means that Julia's time was the 9th fastest 2-mile time ever to be ran in the state of Ohio, ever. Yeah, that's incredible. Additionally, she set 3 school records. She set the mile record time of 5:04.05, which was last set in 2005 by Aubrey Alexander, which has some history here in Strongsville. So she set that record. The 2-mile record time of 10:24.65, which she ran a week prior to the state meet at the regional meet, was her own record that she broke, and she reset that. That's one that might stand for a long time. And then her indoor time that she ran at the state indoor meet of 10:38.54 was also a school record. So 3 school records in her time here, and then she's moving on, so she's turning the page, and she's leaving Strongsville High School, and she's going to Loyola Chicago University, and she'll continue her collegiate career running, and I just can't wait to see what she can do at that point. She won't be running the 2-mile. She'll be running much longer races than that, I'm sure. But so thank you very much, Julia. I appreciate everything you've done for us.
Congratulations again to our outstanding athletes, students, and staff. It's another great example of the wonderful people we're able to work with and the wonderful students we have in our school district. And, you know, I'm always just amazed. I'm amazed of everybody, but our track athletes, man, I like to run, but wow. Like, I can't even comprehend making your body move that fast. That's phenomenal. Or jumping that high. So it's always amazing to see the wonderful things that everybody's doing academically or athletically or in our classrooms for our kids, and the power of our principals and our teachers in the classroom, and Keith and his team setting the environment for our school district. So just thank you, and on behalf of all of us, we appreciate what you do each and every day, and our students, what you do to make us be the great school district we are.
Thank you. Now's a great time if anyone wants to. We'll pause for a second.
Come on, no one wants to stay.
All right, moving on with our agenda. Next, we have public comment. I don't have any slips. George, do you have anything?
I don't have any. Is there any public comment?
Tom or Dawn, if one of you can grab the doors for us. Thanks.
They're making public comment.
They are.
They are. There's a lot of public comment in the hallway.
At least they're happy.
All right, so no public comment. Next, we have the approval of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes from May 11th, 2023 and May 25th of 2023. All district video and audio recordings will be a permanent part of the minutes. And next up, then, I will turn it over to George.
Thank you, Mrs. Hausum. I have several items for your consideration tonight, mostly around our fiscal year end. Tomorrow is the last day of our fiscal year, so it's kind of a big day for us, and then a new year going into July. But with that, there's several procedural items that need to take place at the end of the fiscal year, which will be encapsulated as part of the items on the agenda tonight. First off is the item 1, E1 is the May financial report. Those reports are attached to the agenda. The second item is SEF grant approval. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the following Strongsville Education Foundation grants for transportation expenses for elementary school field trips and expenses for the early learning preschool in-house field trip for fiscal year 23 be approved for the total amount of $17,474. So a big thank you to the SEF who funds our field trips for the elementary school and preschool. Item E3, annual transfer of funds and advances. These are due to the end of the fiscal year. We cannot have funds that are in negative balance, and in doing so, that the general fund would do a transfer to cover any negatives. The ones that we have are Fund 9 is the uniform school supplies. In total for each fund under Fund 9 is $52,133. The termination benefit fund is where we pay our severance payments for our employees that are retiring. There is no income going into that fund. It is a transfer from the general fund. Rather than paying the expense at the general fund, we pay it out of this 035 fund, so it doesn't count against our per pupil amount. The cost for this year was $400,051.16, so that is the transfer going in. And then also the athletics, the middle school athletics. Earlier in the year, we did a budget increase for them. We estimated a transfer at that time of $10,762. The actual transfer based on what they spent and revenue that they brought in the remaining of the year is $6,831.49. So in total, transfers to cover negatives for the fiscal year is $459,016.29. The next grouping of transfers is the general fund turf savings to the turf account. We've been doing this annually since we set up this account when we install the turf. First is the annual $35,000 of the general fund savings and materials and supplies that goes to the turf account, and then also the other $20,144.15 is part of our Southwest trainer fee savings agreement that we have. Southwest, at the time of the agreement, they lowered their fees based as their contribution to the turf program. And then the next grouping is advances to cover year-end deficit cash balances in total of $197,619.85. What these are is at the end of the year with these grants, the grants are, you have to spend the money first and then put in for reimbursement. There's a month lag. So these are just to cover, an advance to cover the negatives until the revenue comes in. Once the revenue comes in, we'll advance the dollars back to the general fund and around the November board meeting. And the reason why it's November, not sooner, is we have to do a final expenditure report with ODE, which after the final expenditure report, they give us the remaining cash requests, which is around, they're due by September, and we'll receive them by October, November. The next item is the final amended appropriations for the fiscal year 23. You'll notice several decreases in appropriations, and the reason for the decrease is to meet budgetary compliance of appropriations which cannot exceed beginning cash plus actual revenues. Overall, there are 3 budgetary compliance tests that the district must meet. Appropriations in the financial system must match the BOE approval. Appropriations cannot exceed the beginning cash plus estimated revenues, and appropriations cannot exceed beginning cash plus actual revenues. Throughout the year, we are compliant on the first 2 compliance tests. The last compliance test is an end-of-year fiscal year adjustment to reduce budgets based on actual available resources. Invoice order approval. Be it resolved upon the recommendation that the treasurer that in accordance to ORC for the after-the-fact invoice, the board approves the following invoice payment, and the treasurer be authorized to sign the fiscal certificate. The vendor is Envoy. The PO is PO 233602, which is dated 6/15/2023, in the amount of $23,726.24, and the renewal for Envoy came to us at May 13, 2023. Approval of new funds. These are the new grant funds for the next fiscal year. Each fiscal year, the grants have their own new fund to account for the activity for that fiscal year, and then also creating the student activities account for the high school class of 2027, which is the incoming freshman class. Student activity programs, uniform school supplies, public school support, internal rotary funds, and local grants proposed budgets for fiscal year 24. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the proposed budgets for fiscal year 24 be approved as listed. Fiscal year 24 temporary appropriations. Be it resolved upon the recommendation that the treasurer that the temporary appropriations for fiscal year 24 be approved. The reason they're temporary is for the general fund. For the temporary appropriations for salaries and benefits, we set them at 50%. The remaining account numbers we set at 100%. And the reason to do a temporary budget now is we're still doing the hiring process as people are hiring. As being hired and coming in, we can set their actual salary and benefits, and then also any contractual commitments that we have for next year. Those are still being finalized. We have till September 30th to do an annual budget, which we usually adopt that in September. And then in November, we'll do the 5-year forecast again. The next item, E9, athletic ticket pricing, or athletic event ticket and pass pricing. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the athletic event prices for 23-24 school year be approved as presented in the exhibit. The increases were based on the conference increases. The next item, it is a separate vote. It is for the food service management company contract renewal. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the contract between Strongsville City Schools and Compass Group USA by and through its Chartwell's division for management of the school district's food service program be renewed effective July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Kilbane.
Hang on 1 second. On the wrong one. Sorry, technology. Okay.
Can you take the roll?
Take the roll?
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any
Yes.
discussion? I guess I should ask. We should have asked that. Though. Any no discussion? Okay.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and then the last one, E11, is the resolution for renewal of an existing 5.9 mil tax levy for the purpose of the current expense. I'll read the resolution, but there was a change, since we already approved this in May, there was a change in the fiscal certificate based on rounding. So we had to repeal that resolution and then reissue this resolution, which will be filed tomorrow. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that a resolution be approved pursuant to section 5705.21 of the revised code, submitting to the electors of the Strongsville City School District the question of renewal of an existing tax levy for the purpose of current expenses, whereas in light of the county fiscal officer's reissued certifications, this board desires to reassert its determination to proceed with submitting to the electors the question of the renewal of the aforementioned tax levy in accordance with the certification of the county fiscal officer dated June 8, 2023. The prior resolution 230528 of this board hereby is repealed. The two changes were on the county auditor certification. It had the full, for the actual dollars at the mill that the levy would generate, it was to the dollar. By law, should have been rounded to the nearest thousand. So there was some concern if we send it back, if we send it in, the Secretary of State's office may have sent it back for correction. And then the other change was, as part of the ballot language, it lists the value per 100,000. It had it listed at $206, which was the full rate. We could have listed it at the effective rate, which is $179, which is the cost to the taxpayers at this time. So those were the two changes on the county's recertification.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Kilbane. Any questions for George? All right, hearing none. George, can you take the roll?
Yep. Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that concludes my report, if there's no further questions.
All right, anybody have any questions, comments for George?
Thank you.
Thank you, George. I know you've been burning the midnight candle, trying to get your stuff done for year end, so we appreciate it.
It's
Thank
a
you.
Busy time of the year, but
Yes.
it's done, and relax in July.
Good. Good, thank you. All right, turn it over to Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Ms. Hausum. The first item is a discussion item about our 2023-24 calendar. So you have it in board docs, as well as George is going to put it on the board here shortly. And if you want to click on the 2023-24 tab, scroll down a little bit, George. If you, click on the 23-24 tab, and then scroll down to where you can see March. So as we've all heard in the news, April 8th, 2024 is a total eclipse. And it will be, this is going to be a generational time where in this area it's going to be complete darkness. The eclipse starts around 2 p.m. I think we'll hit its full force around 3:30ish, 3:40, and then phase off until the sun would return sometime after 4 o'clock. So this is something various school districts have been talking about. It's going to be a high populated area. Especially during our dismissal time, there's concerns about having to traverse all of our students from high school to elementary during that time period. And other school districts are not having school on that day, which would cause childcare issues for a lot of our staff. So what I'm proposing to proactively address that is we've taken a look at the school calendar and said, how can we make an adjustment, not change the amount of student days we have or the amount of staff days we have, but are there any ways to make an adjustment to our calendar? So after some discussion with our team and sharing this feedback with our calendar committee, what I'm recommending to the board is March 8th is currently a non-school day. So it just says no school. That day is really considered a parent-teacher conference compensation day for our teachers. They work 2 evenings. That affords them with a day of paid work off. The conferences are in February. We fit this day into March because February already had a lot of days where students wouldn't be in attendance. So we put it into March. And so what I'm proposing to the board based on these discussions is that we simply move the day off on March 8th. That becomes a student day. And we move that to April 8th. And that becomes the parent-teacher conference comp day. That would be a no school for students, no school for staff. It would extend spring break by an additional day. One of the things that we've been challenged with lately is travel, as we talked about, and people going on spring break and coming back and being stuck in other places. So that would give us another day to allow that to happen. It would allow our employees to be home if they have children to supervise them, as well as to if people are into the eclipse, enjoy this once-in-a-generation experience. So it also, as you take a look at the March days, we have a day off at the last Friday of March already. We have a professional development day for staff on March 11th. And then, so those days would stay. So the only changes would be March 8th would be a school day, April 8th would be a non-school day, and then the end of the third quarter, we would bump back a day to Friday. It's not going to make any major changes, just when the grade period ends. So I wanted to open up for questions, discussion. If the board has consensus that they're okay with that, we'll make the necessary adjustments, bring it back at the July 13th meeting. You'll officially vote on it at that time, and then that would make it official, and we can communicate and update the calendars as such. So any questions or feedback on that choice? Everybody okay with it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So thank you. We will make the adjustment. July 13th, we'll have it back on for official vote. The other items on the agenda, number 2, is these are annual items. Number 2 is be resolved upon my recommendation that the Board of Education authorizes the Calamity Day Alternative Makeup Plan for the 23-24 school year, as stated in the exhibit. This helps address preschool and kindergarten, and these are called blizzard bags, and that says they have very few minimum hours left in their schedule because they're half day. So if we have to cancel school for weather or calamity, I have up to 3 days that they can make up with basically asynchronous work. Other than that, they'd have to come in and make up days as well. So that's what that one is about. Number 3 is the contingency calendar. This says, we haven't had to use this in a long, long time since we went to minimum school hours versus days. If for some reason we would utilize all of we would go below the minimum hours per grade level, these are the days that we would reopen school and have students attend. It would be the next week, the first week that we're typically closed after Memorial Day weekend. Any questions on those annual calendar items? Number 4 is ratification of the agreement with the Strongsville Education Association. So be it resolved upon my recommendation that the Board of Education ratifies the 3-year agreement with the Strongsville Education Association effective August 1st, 2023 through July 31st, 2026, and this does require a vote.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Coleman.
Yes, so I'm very excited about the work with the great partnership we have and continue to have with our teachers. I'd like to commend Mike Scott, our association president, and his team. Also, Bill Wingler, Jenny Pelko, and Georgia Anagnostou were key members of our team. And the contract is fair to our employees, it's fair to the district, and it's fair to the taxpayer. And we set very clear goals for what we wanted to accomplish in the negotiation process. We mutually shared those same goals between the association and the district. And as we take a look at what we're trying to do, we're trying to attract, develop, and retain a premier teaching staff that strengthens the work that we're doing as a school district, while doing it in a financially reasonable and sustainable manner. And I feel like this contract has accomplished those goals. Some of the highlights is we've took a lot of time, and Jenny led this effort with a committee of other staff to look at our supplemental contracts. We talked a lot about how do we increase student opportunities. We've done that athletically. We've looked at the athletics in this contract and made some adjustments, but what I'm really proud about is in music, arts, and other extracurricular clubs, service organizations, Model UN, a variety of National History Project Day, a variety of them. We've also looked at things our teachers have done, volunteered for a lot of years of middle school show choir and jazz ensemble and chamber strings and plays and musicals. So we've done a lot of work that is going to create increased opportunities for students to get involved in extra and co-curriculars, not just in athletics, not just in the arts, but also in a variety of academic areas. Academic Challenge is one that's being brought back. We're bringing additional supplemental contracts to the middle school like we did the elementary school. So a lot of great opportunities for our kids coming up in this next year because of the agreement we've been able to reach. As we look at the demands on teachers today, it's ever increasing. Not only just on meeting the needs of our kids, but if you pay attention to legislation, there's always new demands that legislators are making that we have to implement as a school district. So we need that time to provide professional development. So this contract increases professional development days for our teachers from 2 days to a maximum of 6 days without reducing the number of student days that we've been utilizing in the past few years, which is great news for our kids and for our staff. We've also increased time during the school day for teachers to collaborate, able to work together, plan meaningful instruction for our students, which is a big part of it. And then anytime you look at a contract, you look at how can we take a look at our compensation package and our benefits package and make sure we're keeping pace with the market in a fair way that also attracts and retains staff. So we've implemented some insurance changes to keep up with the market and inflationary rate by increasing deductibles and out-of-pocket expenses, prescription and medical copays, a generic incentive that's going to save the district a good chunk of money as it's fully implemented in terms of our prescription costs. And then a health reimbursement account that's going to incentivize wellness and also create a good health benefit package for our employees. And then salary increases, as you take a look, the salary increases are going to be 2.75% in the first 2 years of the contract and 2.5% in the third year of the contract. And if you take a look at what is going on in the educational field in Northeast Ohio, that's right at the market rate. So again, as we talk about what's fair to our employees, our taxpayers, our district, I'm very proud of the agreement that we came to. I appreciate the board's leadership as you're a big part of the decisions that are made. And it's exciting to look at that we were basically able to come to agreement in about 3 days with a couple other extra meetings to finish some things up. That just says a lot about the relationship and the partnership we have for the greater good of the district between the teachers and the board and the administrators. So that gives you some highlights of the contract as it will start this August.
Thank you. And on behalf of the board, I just want to share our appreciation of all involved for their efforts and cooperatively working to finalize this agreement. Building and maintaining strong relationships with our teachers is an important factor in making sure our district continues to provide the very best opportunities both inside and outside of the classroom for our students. So again, thank you. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any comments or questions? All right, George, can you take the roll?
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
One last item under my report is be resolved upon my recommendation that the Leadership Handbook adopted for the period of August 1st, 2022 through July 31st, 2025 be revised and that the Board of Education approves the updated version. There's 3 updates that are being provided in this handbook. The first of it is simply a title change. We have a title for the department secretaries that's called Executive Secretary. That's a little bit of an older title. We have some retirees coming up in that area, and also it's come up from our executive secretaries that they would like the title to be evolved to administrative assistant. So that title has been changed throughout the handbook. The second thing is at times we see that the salary schedules of certain employee groups have fallen behind the market rate. That was true with our assistant treasurer position. As you take a look at, there's a competitive market for treasurers out there. So we thought it was imperative to adjust that. So we've adjusted the assistant treasurer to move to a different row, to be on the same row as the assistant athletic director, to follow that compensation schedule. That aligns us with the market rate and ensures that, George has done a great job of training up future treasurers, but keeps our assistant treasurers here in Strongsville for a little bit longer to keep continuity within the department. And the third change was in there is, over the years, we've added a few leadership positions that were 215 days. So we clarified some language in there, just spelling out the positions versus of 260-day employees and which job titles are in that position, 215, and we have a 195-day position. So those are the 3 changes that were made for this addendum to the contract.
And Dr. Iba, it was listed as a consent item, just to keep consistency with the previous item. It should be an action, so I changed it to an action item.
So we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Cobain. Any questions? Comments? All right.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Any questions on any of my items? Okay, moving on to business services. First, be it resolved upon my recommendation that the board enters into agreement between Strongsville City Schools and ALCO for the vendor managed supply program as stated in exhibit for 1 fiscal year in the amount of $53,148. Funding will be from the general fund supplies and materials for custodial. This is an annual item where we pay all of our chemicals. If we have a need that exceeds that, we get those without additional charge. If we do not utilize the full amount, we have credits moving forward. And Steve's done this for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's been a benefit.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? George, you can take the roll.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 2 is transportation for non-public students. So listed, be resolved upon my recommendation that school bus transportation for the students listed in the exhibit be declared impractical due to time and distance required to provide transportation, the cost in terms of equipment, maintenance, personnel, and administration, and the additional service unavoidably disrupts current transportation schedules. Be it further resolved that in lieu of providing transportation, that the district pays parents of students attending these schools, and the reimbursement will be based on the amount allotted by the state. Moving on to number 3, another annual renewal. Be resolved upon my recommendation that we enter into a 5-year renewal for paper cut click charges with Dex Imaging beginning July 26, 2023 through July 26, 2028 for a total of $16,455. Funding will come from the Permanent Improvement Fund. This is not our copier system. This is the click counts and the software that runs and tracks our paper usage across the district. The next item is our payment for our school resources officers. So be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the monthly school resource officer reimbursement be approved per the exhibit. You approved this new rate back in January. This is just applying it for the upcoming school year. And in January, when their new contract starts, we'll have another new rate that will most likely be on the agenda for your consideration. Number 5, I missed the last action item, so I'll read it and then I'll give the update when it's time for discussion. So be it resolved upon my recommendation that the Board of Education approves the purchase of safety security film from Armor Window Films for a total of $175,584.83 for district building windows, funding to be from the safety grant.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Kilbane. Can you explain, please?
Yes, so as we've talked about, we've received a variety of safety grants from the state. Steve has, in collaboration with our city safety services, a list of needs from the building. One of those was to further increase. Some buildings don't have it, some buildings have it but can use additional. This is window film, security window film. So these are not making our windows and doors bulletproof. It makes them shatter resistant. So there will be security film on entryway doors and windows that if there is an active threat and somebody tries to enter, the windows will not shatter. They will stay intact. And so this goes for all of our buildings in specified windows and doors. The last grant we got, I think, was $450,000, which he put that. So this is the start of that, and then that grant will be further used possibly for more as we see how much money is left after we take care of some other safety items in the district. So that's another enhancement. We have a very safe district and a lot of safety features in place. This is another great addition to the overall safety of our district.
I have a question. Is our maintenance crew installing these then?
No, this is a company.
They do the whole thing?
Yes, they do the whole installation.
Do we know when it will be done by?
I'll have to follow up with Steve and see. Last time we spoke, it should be done prior to the start of the school year. It's I think it's a 2-week process to get through all the different buildings. So we should be good, but I'll verify with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, George, can you take the roll?
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Ms. Kilbane?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
And the final item is we have a variety of gifts and thank our generous community for their support. We have the Blazetic family who donated a canopy tent for the girls and boys tennis team. Strongsville PTA Council had the following grants for the school year. Kinsner Elementary received playground equipment. Moraski Elementary for outdoor and indoor recess equipment. Moraski also received 30 ukuleles. SEPTA received a grant to support educational activities and preschool prom. SELP received a grant for math and literacy materials for both the Chapman and Lund Road preschool site. The high school received a grant for the modern intensive life school classes for their coffee shop. The high school received a grant for flexible seating for their courtyard. High school also received a grant for equipment for the derby shop. Sarar received a grant for reusable Fun and Fit Playground USA Maps stencil. Although it went to Sarar, I think they're using that at a variety of all the buildings, I think it was decided. And then Whitney Elementary School received a grant for outdoor-indoor recess equipment. And I know I didn't read all of the dollars, but that totals up to a whole heck of a lot of money. So thank you very much to the Blazetic family as well as our Strongsville PTA Council for their generosity and the grants. Any questions on business services? Under curriculum, we have a handful of other routine items. We've got under item 1, the elementary student fee list for the upcoming school year be approved as presented. Under number 2, we have the same, but for the secondary student fee list. Under number 3, we have the recommendation to an interpreting services agreement with Cross Thread Solutions for interpreting services for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Number 4, be it resolved upon my recommendation that the district pays for students to participate in Admetum Solutions secondary online curriculum at an approximate rate of $250 per student per month for the 23-24 school year. That's one of the online curriculum solutions we use for Strongsville Academy. Number 5, be it resolved that we purchase a Success Maker math curriculum and math screener for grades 6 to 8 at a total cost of $44,700. This is something that our math coach, Kim Scott, and our middle school math teachers got together. They looked at all of the software-based math resources we were using and looked to consolidate those and pick one that they thought was the best. So yes, this is a significant cost, but it replaces probably 2 to 3 other ones that were being used. And this not only provides a great assessment piece of it through the screener, but a great supplement to the math instruction materials that we have. Under number 6, by law, a school district, we have various payments that we have to provide for College Credit Plus, one of those being textbooks. So this one recommends that we pay for textbooks for students participating in College Credit Plus through Tri-C at an approximate cost of $35,000 for the upcoming school year. Under number 7, we do have one student teacher placement for your consideration at Whitney Elementary School to be assigned to Mary Ortenzi for the upcoming fall. A student is from Notre Dame. Number 8, be it resolved upon my recommendation that permission be granted to Vicki Iger and Andrew Heyer to travel with the choral and chamber string students to New York City, April 11th to 14th, 2024. Transportation will be via motor coach, and expenses will be paid by the participating students and fundraising activities. And a new trip to the rotation, which I think is outstanding, is a trip to Greece that's being taken on by our social studies department. So be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that permission be granted to Strongsville High School social studies teacher Natalia Buckwald to travel with anthropology and social studies students to Greece, June 5th through 14th, 2025. Expenses associated with the trip will be paid by participating students. If necessary, the trip may be postponed or the destination changed depending on world events at the time. And as is past practice, 90 days, 60 days, 30 days out, Shelley takes a look at that for us and does her research, and we update the board accordingly. Any questions on curriculum?
Did you get all your questions answered about the strings and the?
I did, yes.
Okay.
So yes, we are good to go. One of the questions that I had is we typically don't like students to miss days of school for a trip. There's a new regulation that we cannot drive through the night. So they typically would leave Thursday night and get to New York on Friday. So they need the day to travel so they could be there for their weekend events. Because of the venues, chambers, it's not the full orchestra going, it's the chamber strings, which is about 25 students. And they used to years ago do a trip together like this, so this is kind of just reinstituting that. After Andy and Vicki got back to me, I'm good to go with the trip. I think it'll be a nice trip for the kids. And the other question I asked is typically we do a 3-year rotation. COVID kind of threw a wrinkle in that rotation, so this will kind of get them back on track. Any other questions?
Where was this Greece trip when I graduated?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I may have to check out if they need any chaperones on that one. All right, with student services, I'm going to ask Andy to come up and share his update for the month. Andy?
This evening I have 8 items for your consideration. The first being the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Strongsville Board of Education enters into an agreement with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio to implement positive education program services for 2023-24 school year. Items 2, 3, and 4 all read the same to Cleveland Clinic Learner School for Autism. If it's okay with the board, I'll read it once. If not, I'll read it 3 times. So it is for, as I said, Cleveland Clinic Learner School for Autism. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the Board of Education, enter into an agreement with the Cleveland Clinic Children's Hospital for rehabilitation on behalf of its Learner School for Autism for students with disabilities for the 2023-24 school year. Item number 5 is for STEPS Educational Group. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Strongsville Board of Education enters into an agreement with STEPS Educational Group for placement of a student with disabilities for the 2023-24 school year in the amount of $79,000. Item number 6, we have Power School Group. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education enters into an agreement with Power School Group to provide Power School Special Programs digital signature for the 2023-24 school year in the amount of $8,418.03. This is to replace our current program, which is DocuSign, which is currently embedded into our special education program. This is probably about a third of the cost. So Power School came up with their own native solution that we're going to transition to this year. Number 7 is for PSI affiliates. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education enters into an agreement with PSI affiliates in the amount of $79,052.40 for social worker services to service students for Strongsville City Schools district-wide. And lastly, for student services, we have number 8, tuition-free admission for foreign exchange student. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that tuition-free admission for the 2023-24 school year be granted to the student listed below. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Andy.
All right, thank you.
Next, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jenny Pelko, with the Human Resource Report.
Thank you. I have the following items for your consideration this evening. Number 1, we have the resignation of a certificated athletic supplemental contract. Number 2, resignation for non-certificated staff. Number 3, appointments for certificated staff. And I do want to highlight, we've got Alyssa McNichol in the audience. I always tell new teachers they're welcome to come to the board meeting, but they're under no obligation to. But I always enjoy seeing them again, and love that she's here just to hear more about our district and what's going on. So Alyssa will be our new music teacher at Sarar Elementary. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. So where did Sarar go?
Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here. Under number 4, we have appointments for non-certificated staff. Under 5, appointments for certificated athletic supplemental contracts. 6, we have appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts. 7, appointments for certificated supplemental contracts. Under 8, we have one last appointment for our summer learning, as Ms. Hausum highlighted earlier. I think it's been very successful, lots of students attending, and really just proud of our teachers and everybody for organizing that huge undertaking. Under 9, we have the additional appointment for, additional time certificated staff. Under 10, additional time for non-certificated staff. 11, change in hours for non-certificated staff. 12, changes in status for non-certificated staff. 13, contract recommendation for non-certificated staff. 14, we have a stipend for our resident educator coordinator. 15, stipends for our teacher-based team coaches. 16, stipends for our technology coaches. 17, stipends for our webmasters. 18, additional volunteers for our district. And under 19, we have a memorandum of understanding. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the memorandum of understanding between the Strongsville Board of Education and the Strongsville Education Association, as stated in the exhibit, be accepted. And finally, under 20, another memorandum of understanding. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the memorandum of understanding between the Strongsville Board of Education and the Strongsville Education Association, as stated in the exhibit, be accepted. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Jenny? Under technology, we do have one item. Be it resolved upon my recommendation that the Board of Education approves entering into a 3-year agreement with Fireplace, Inc. for the purchase of a SMORE team account, essential program for the district. Software provides a newsletter application for district users to communicate with parents and staff. The one-time discounted cost is $5,667.30 and covers the period of August 1, 2023 through July 31st, 2026. Any questions for technology? With that, that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move on to the agenda, report on Polaris Career Center.
Thank you. We already had a fantastic report on Polaris Career Center earlier tonight when we heard about Andrew's scholarship and successes there. A couple other things to highlight. A couple weeks ago, we had a very successful camp discovery program. That's a camp, day camp for students entering grades 6 through 8, and there are all kinds of programs. My sons did the culinary programs, and I have to say we're still working through that food. So they had the best time and made lots of yummy treats. And so if you're interested in seeing what that looked like for our students, you can check out social media. They have all kinds of highlights. And then be on the lookout. I've already heard from some parents who are interested for next year, so be on the lookout for that. And two other businesses we want to give a shout out to. PPG has just awarded Polaris Career Center a $7,500 grant for Project Lead the Way, and that is a program that services all of our middle school students here in addition to several other districts. And so our students directly benefit from that $7,500, so we're very thankful to PPG. And I know I did have a community member here in Strongsville reach out to me about that grant, so thank you to him for being aware of the needs of the community. And finally, Strongsville's Clark Reliance has a great partnership with Polaris, and they welcomed some summer welding interns. So we thank them for their involvement in the school community. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Michelle. Rich, report on legislation.
Thank you, Mrs. Hausum. The update for today is that the Ohio House and Senate leaders yesterday indicated they're closing in on a deal to pass a new state budget after reaching tentative agreement on school vouchers, K-12 funding, and a number of other education issues. The final budget vote is expected tomorrow, so cross our fingers. And I would like to highlight that as far as the local school district, as far as Strongsville is concerned, the final budget will contain the House's proposal to continue to fully fund the Cup-Patterson School funding plan, and that the House portion or the House version of the budget bill fully funded it. The Senate version pared it back a little bit, and that Senate version would have harmed Strongsville compared to the House version. So it's good news that, cross our fingers, I don't want to count our chickens before they're hatched, but cross our fingers, we should be in a better position that the House version of the funding will become part of the next biennium state budget. Both the House and the Senate canceled their sessions today, but they have, if needed, sessions scheduled for Friday. The procedures that'll happen is assuming that the accepted budget is passed by the conferences, accept it and it's passed. It'll then go to the governor, and the governor will have an opportunity to determine any line item vetoes that the governor wants. That will take a few days. The biennium budget is over 9,000 pages long, so the governor is going to take a reasonable amount of time to make his determination. To get us past the deadline, most likely tomorrow they'll pass a temporary appropriation measure that will last approximately 2 weeks to get us from the deadline of June 30th to when the governor signs the final budget. But to give you an example of the changes, last year our estimated aid, according to the Ohio Legislative Service Commission, from the state was approximately $7.8 million. The House version for fiscal year 24 would have raised that or increased that to $8.3 million. The Senate version brought it back down to $7.8 million. Fiscal year 25, the increase for the House version for Strongsville would have been $8.6 million, whereas the increase for the Senate version would have been $7.8 million, which in rough numbers is a change of $500,000 for next year and a little over $800,000 for the year after. So they, the wrangling in Columbus does have real effects on what happens here in Strongsville. So we're going to thank the House once this all comes through and the House version passes. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, our liaison reports. City Council. At their last city council meeting, the Charter Review Board made a presentation on a few changes, and they presented to our city council. Council will vote on the proposed changes at their council meeting in July, their very last meeting before they recess for in the month of August. And that concludes the city council report. Strongsville Education Foundation?
The only thing I have on that is they are going to cancel their jockey and juleps for next May, and they voted they are going to go with a casino night, November 11th. Keep that on your calendar. They're hoping that the change will be able to attract more people because May is such a busy time. So anybody out there listening, they do a great job, and they do so many great things for the kids in the schools. So keep November 11th open if you can remember that. And I think they approved all their grants for the year. And other than that, that concludes my report.
Thank you. PTA Council? Really?
That would be me. And they're recessed, so nothing until September.
Thank you. Board committee reports. Finance Committee?
No report. Our next meeting is to be announced.
Policy Committee?
We are having a meeting July 18th at 2 p.m. here. If you're ready for some excitement, come join us.
Thank you. Facilities Committee? Rich, we don't...
Our next meeting is on August 15th at 6:30 p.m. The Facilities Committee is meeting quarterly. The busy work is being done by the Elementary Facilities Committee, but the next Board Facilities Committee is August 15th.
Thank you. Business Advisory Council?
Our next meeting is to be announced.
Perfect. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of consent calendar at this point of the agenda means that all items appearing in this agenda denoted as type/action consent, which items constitute the consent calendar, are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that such items be removed from the consent calendar and voted upon separately. Do we have anything that needs to be removed? Nope. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Kilbane. George, can you take the roll?
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, superintendent's timely information.
Thank you. I have a couple updates in terms of timely information. As we heard from, Mr. Wingler about the work Keith, our maintenance department, as well as our custodians do. This is a busy time for our maintenance and custodial staff as they get the buildings ready for the fall. So in terms of our custodial work, they're doing a phenomenal job deep cleaning all of the buildings, emptying out the classrooms, waxing the floors, cleaning them out, cleaning the walls and all the surfaces, and putting everything back together for the start of the school year. Some of the bigger maintenance projects in the district is we have a couple, additional classroom spaces being built at Whitney Elementary School starting in the spring, but you can see the progress here. Moraski's putting a pavilion right outside of their playground there, so that's coming together. And then if you go to Pat Catan Stadium, as you know, the board approved a track replacement for this summer. We're also, as you can see a little bit in that picture, we're putting new curbing around the track to avoid the grass that was growing there and the trimming, new fence line, as well as new track. And if you've been to the middle school or here, it's not exciting, but the preventative maintenance to seal our investment in our parking lots and reline those for the year is going on. And Steve has put a 3 to 5 year cycle on that, so that's in good shape. So appreciate the work that everybody's doing over the summer to get the school ready for fall. On the next slide, we talked about the summer school for our high school students and elementary students. We also have what's called extended school year to support our students with disabilities that qualify for this extended summer programming. So we've got over 30 students at the middle school as well. receiving behavioral therapy, speech therapy, specially designed instruction for their individual needs. So we it's a great opportunity for our staff to be with our kids, to keep learning going throughout the summer, as well as it says here, they're doing some cooking. We've got coffee shops, and then obviously the social skills of interacting with different staff and peers. So in terms of summer opportunities, whether it be makerspace or reading and math instruction or credit recovery or credit advancement at the secondary level, as well as specifically targeted instruction for our students with disabilities, it's been a great June helping support our kids in a variety of ways. And then finally, on the last slide, as we're getting through towards the end of June, my mom is a retired teacher, and she would always say, July 4th, it's the halfway point. You're on the downward slide towards the start of the school year. So we are there. But Wednesday, August 16th, will be the first day for grades 1 and 9 in kindergarten orientation. If you read my parent update this week, there's important information if you have a kindergarten child about signing up for kindergarten screening, and then when times will be assigned for your kindergarten orientation on that first day. The next day, kindergarten and grades 10 to 12 come, and then the following Monday, preschool is back, and orientation for preschool students happens the prior week. So before you know it, we'll be back at it, but those are some timely information updates for you for this meeting.
Thank you. Next, Board of Education, other. Do we have any other? Hearing no other. Next, we have meeting notifications. A regular Board of Education meeting work session will be held Thursday, July 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the meeting room of the Administration Building, 18199 Cook Avenue, Strongsville, Ohio. And our annual board retreat will be held Thursday, July 27th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. in the meeting room of the Administration Building, 18199 Cook Avenue, Strongsville, Ohio. Next, we need to have to appoint a treasurer pro tem for our July 13th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. We need a motion to approve the appointment of Nicholas Mancini as treasurer pro tem for the July 13th meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcik, second by Mrs. Kilbane. George will be around the world in Greece with his family for some much-deserved time off, so Nick is going to step in for him and try to fill his shoes.
I'll be scouting on Natalia's trip for 2025.
Yes. Come back and tell us as chaperones where we need to
Right.
go.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions, comments?
We do live stream that meeting, so I would expect George to watch it.
And what time will it be in Greece? At 7?
It is right now. It is the middle of the night.
All right.
There you go.
We should have peace and quiet watching.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you take the roll, George?
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Ms. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
and Mrs. Bissell.
Yes.
Motion passes. We hope you have a great time, George.
Thanks.
And next, we do have need for executive session to discuss.
To consider the employment of a public employee.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. George, can you take the roll?
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Ms. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell.
Yes.
Right, and we will adjourn the meeting,
No, we will enter an executive.
or we will enter an executive session, I know, at 8:35. We see no need to come back into public session, so everyone please enjoy the rest of your night and have a happy 4th of July weekend.